Welcome to Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi, a podcast that showcases people you may not know who are choosing to use their gifts to inspire and move the planet.
Hello, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us at Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi. I am here with my guest, Sequoyah Taylor, and she's going to share a little bit about who she is and what it is that she does and how she can help you. So Sequoyah, take it away.
Hey guys, thank you so much, Miss Tammi, for allowing me to be on. Look, I love the name Straight Out of Savannah. I'm like, yes, take me like 90 minutes to get it. I love it, right? So my name is Sequoyah Taylor. I go by Sequoyah Ase Taylor on most platforms, and I am a functional wellness practitioner. And I'm also the CEO and founder of ASE Wellness. And what I do is that I help frustrated and confused women to discover and decode their DNA design code so that they can be healthy, happy, and gain harmony. How do we do that? Is by distressing the mess of their life through testing and not guessing. And so I'm very much into DNA. I'm very much into genetics, using your genetics to help you in all aspects of living, whether that be the science stuff as far as your health and wellness, whether that's something as far as like the spiritual things that we talk about. I'm using your genetics and DNA for that, and also for succession. So finding out genealogy and things of that nature as well. So we use 100% of your DNA to allow you to live the best life that you can by being healthy, happy, and gaining harmony.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. All right, we're going to get into it. So how did you come on this path? I mean, what brought you to this path? Because so many times people have dark nights of the souls, and I had that brought me to this path consciously, or let's say intentionally. So what brought you to this path?
And it's interesting you should say like the dark night of the soul, because I can think of 3 or 4 different times where I probably was having those, but I didn't really know or had that, and I was like, okay, well, but for me, it's always been this thing. As I went through this journey, I call it the year to 3-3. I've been in healthcare since I was like in my 20s, right? So it's like I've been in healthcare. I always knew that I wanted to be a healer. I always knew I wanted to help people, right? And so I went at first the more traditional route. It was more about, hey, go to school, go do this, and get the, work in a hospital. And so as I went on this path and journey of saying, hey, I can do bad by myself. I don't need the outside of the politics of things from, employers. And there are other ways to help and heal people and get to the root cause of stuff and not, band-aid things and not chase symptoms. It led me on that path. I always tell people that, the whole point of like, listen to your guys, listen to your ancestors, because if you don't, it's going to come back to you anyway. I was getting spanked all the way around because I would do it in a little bit of ways, and then I would expand out and do something else, right? So it was like, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it this way. And they're like, no, come back this way. And so once I just started doing that, that's more of that spiritual journey, had some deaths in the family that were health related, and going through that process of healing, going through that process of saying that what I can do, what I can't do, and finally succumbing and listening to what my guys and what I was called to do, and finding and doing a discovery for myself, it led me on this current path that I'm on now. So I love that I get to combine the traditional, the science part of like genetics and DNA with the spiritual part as well. So it's like I get to be the whole spectrum. Like I tell people all the time, no, we use 100% of your DNA, not just the science piece or not just going spiritual. We use all of it so that we get to show you, and so that you can learn those things to be able to discover yourself, a lot of things about themselves. So for me, it was definitely finally taking heed and falling in line and in place and not being disobedient and running is a word to say, to go on and start that path.
That's powerful. So what kind of background did you have spiritually to begin with? I mean, like, were you Catholic? Were you
So
Buddhist? Were
I
you...
was kind of closest to like Southern Baptist. I was raised to go to church, and we were to church all the time. Whether it was Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Bible study midweek, if we had choir rehearsal, if we had things with the church. So we did a lot of things that were around the church. I tell people all the time, though, the interesting thing about it was at my youth pastor was actually Arabic, right? And so I feel like now that I'm on this journey and I learned this actual concept, I learned that was a very different and unique part of my story that I don't usually share because it didn't even hit me in that way. That because he was Arabic and he was raised Muslim and converted to Christianity, he always used to tell us that, hey, you have to find religion for yourself. You have to find God, the higher power for yourself. Don't let someone tell you about this verse. Don't let someone tell
Wow.
you. Don't let someone tell you about this because every religion has something right. Right? If you all on the baseline of love, he tell us everybody has it right, but you have to find out which one is going to be more tied to you, which one are you connected to for yourself. And so I learned, even though I didn't understand that then, that me having a personal relationship was way more important than religion. Back then I was like, oh, is this mundane? I'm a kid. My mom making me go to church. I gotta, we gotta go back to church at 5. I just ate. I want to take a nap. So it was that routine. It was that rhetoric and that routine, but I did not know what he was instilling in us was very important, especially in a day like today, where you have people say, hey, I used to go to church all the time. I want to run back to go to the church building. I'm like, you don't have a personal relationship with God? Like, you want to find God in the church? Like, find him in your closet, find him in the bathroom, find him, while you're typing on the keyboard, So I think right now it definitely is more, in front of me what he was saying, that there's no true right or wrong when it comes to that. You have to find religion or relationship for yourself. And the most important thing is you have a relationship with your higher power so that you can always be connected and grounded in who and what you are. So
I call it the God of your own understanding.
hmm.
That's matter of fact, I'm working on a course about that because that hit me one day, and yeah, Spirit was like, talk about that, because just like you said, God is not lost, of course, and generally we need to find ourselves, and
Right.
so that was powerful. Just the fact that you had someone to share that with you, even in that setting, because Southern Baptist is usually
Oh yeah,
pretty
and I would
tight.
say we were like Baptists, but we were very much. It was different races and cultures, and that was a good part of it too. But it was definitely more of we read the Bible, we pray. You can't do this, you can't do this, and there were some things that were very detrimental to in that institution, right? And there are some things that I'm like, okay, I can't let that go. And that was a battle when I started being more spiritual, right?
Yes. Let's talk
Because I
about
was like,
that.
okay, this is deep rooted, and I believe this. But if I believe this, can I believe both of them at the same time? Like, can they be equal? Can they be in the
Yes.
same house? Can we
Yes.
take a bath, together? So it was very hard for me to let those things go, and that's where I started to remember the things that he told us, right? And so there are certain things like, am I having girls? And saying that, hey, I'm not going to raise them. Well, we have to go to church every Sunday, or we have to do. I'm going to teach them about these things. But even in the questions that they ask me, it makes me question about this, especially my oldest one, who is the one that'll drop off a cliff, and if she drop off, that's it. It's gonna be a million different things, Libra nation. Then I have an Aquarius that's like, girl, I said what I said, and I'm done with it, right? So it's like having kids, if you allow your kids to be kids, and not only you being the teacher, you being the student, you'll learn also from them because they have that unfilteredness that they haven't seen through a lens of all this other stuff. They're coming in more of the purest form. And
Yes.
so it was some of the questions that were asked me, it was like, oh, I can't remember when I used to ask him that, like why, you would risk the fact of being disowned by your family, to convert to a religion that some people, to them, they said wasn't right. They believed that Islam was the right one. And so it was definitely that concept now that I understand is like, okay, you like I love what you said. Like, it's the God of your own understanding. You have to find your higher power for yourself. And in
Yes.
all things, there's a right and a wrong and an indifference. And you have to come with your own personal beliefs, because when I started talking about saying, oh, doing tarot oracle, I'm like sneaking it, or like, yeah, I put a card, like I won't ever go live on my page. I won't ever do that. And a lot of it was my personal experiences from like my profession. A lot of it was the spiritual things, because we would learn like, oh, this is devil or this is witchcraft. But it also the same thing, my kids would be like, well, why the women are only like this in the Bible? Like, and how did this happen? So they ask you those questions, you're like, it can't all be the same. Like, something
Yes.
that is not right. And so as you go on that journey of self-discovery as well, you have to allow yourself to say that everything, I had to question everything I was told.
Yes.
I had to
Yes.
question everything I was taught, and saying,
Yeah.
was this something that a person made up and said, or is this, like you said, is this part of my understanding of God that I could keep? And I
Yeah.
had to definitely, and I continue to do those things as stuff come up. I'm like, uneasy.
A lot of unlearning.
Right, right,
Yes. Yes.
right.
Absolutely. I I resonate with all that because I was raised Pentecostal holiness. So
Ooh,
yeah, church
ooh,
every day, every I think there was something every day.
Yeah.
And I think we were at church all day Sunday, like 8 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock at night or some shit. I mean, it's just, yeah, it was super
But then,
ridiculous.
but then you think about like, and I had to take the good or bad because, like you said, every piece like we could go through each one and find something. But like when it's stuff like that, I'm like, ooh, when I need somebody to pray and worship, I know who to call.
Yes.
Go to y'all. Like, because when you say know how to call down to heaven and can worship and praise, like, and can keep a song in the heart, like, so those
Yes.
things when you look at, that's why I said everything has a good and a bad and different. Because when
Oh,
you're down and
absolutely.
when it's time for you to know there are times of celebration for yourself, there's celebration for the things
Yes.
that the universe has done and God has done. You have to know how
Yes.
to do that, right? So
Yes.
that
Yes.
concept may be right, but the way they did it may not be part of your, as you said, your God understanding. Like it may not be in the same realm. And so I think when we throw everything out, it's not. I don't think it's a matter
Well,
of
well, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know,
right,
you
right.
gotta. And my grandma used to say, "Eat the meat and spit out the bones."
Hmm. Hmm.
And I still think about that. She's like, "Just eat the meat and spit out the bones."
Right,
You know, you don't have to take everything that anybody says.
right. Or
So just
you can plan it and then see how it's going to go. Because I've learned too. Like I said, when I was a kid and learned that from my youth past, I had no idea what that really meant.
right.
Right now, here we are, 20 something, almost 30 some years later, and I'm like, now I understand it better, and now I understand his role because I would have circumvented because a lot of people say, well, your dad or your father. I'm like, well, that technically was my dad. Like, so you go through those journeys and you put things in proper perspective. He planted a seed back then that just through life that watered it, and now that plant is like, oh, okay, it's bearing fruit,
Yes.
something, and
Yes.
everybody has these different things. So if that's the case, if it may be something that was planted that you may say, you know what, this is not the season for that, or I'm not ready to deal with it, or I'm not ready to let it go, or I don't understand it. Right? You say like God said, you ain't understand, it ain't time for you to understand it right now. Plant the
Yes.
seed and pause, and just go about your merry way. And then when it's time for it to come forth, it will and it make sense. I think we
Yes.
so much cram stuff into this microwave thing that I have to know everything right now. I have to have
No.
all the circumstances and the situations and the solutions and
Yes.
it's like no, just keep on living. Like keep getting up another day and going to sleep. Keep on getting up and go to sleep, and you will be able to eventually figure that out and not have to have the solution now. And I think that's another thing too when we talk about this spiritual path. And you say how did I get to this point? I'm like I kept going to sleep and waking up. I was blessed to keep going to
Yes.
sleep and waking up to be able to figure it out.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing my grandma used to say. She would say, live a little longer.
Mm,
And that's it. You would ask her something and you'd be like, well, I need to know about this or should I do that or whatever. And you'd be like looking at her and she would just come out and she would say these profound things that I never understood at that moment, you know? I'd be like, but that ain't what I didn't ask you that. I asked you, about this, And she would say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. And then she would say, just live a little longer, and just like you said, now here 40 years later, I'm understanding that, and of course I told my own children that. I tell them that now, just live a little longer. Yeah, you're 30 years old, but live a little longer, you know, things are gonna happen in your life that may surprise you, may not. I said, but
or you may go down a path that you didn't think, and I think that's unfortunately, I think that's where we are as a people. And it seems like you would think the older you get. Like I tell people all the time, I tell my kids, I'm like, hey, wisdom is not built on age.
no,
Please
it's
be
not.
clear. Like I know some 60-year-old dummies and fools. I'm like, so it's not built on age, right? It's built
No,
off
it's not.
experiences and what you learn and what you take away from it. And the universe is like, I've had to show you that 22 times, so you better have some wisdom about it, right? So I think
Got your
that's
guys
also in
smacking
play
their
too, right?
heads, right?
Right. How many times you gonna have to get this lesson, boo? Well, I didn't learn it the first 21 times, so it took me 22. I
And
think
it's okay. It's
right,
okay,
it's
right?
okay because it took you 20, it took you 18 times to realize that was what was happening. So the last 4 times you try to get it right. So
Right.
like,
And now you can teach it.
right, you become the master, right? So I think like, you see, and even in that, right, someone was like, it took you so many times to learn this, or like you're on this journey, or in relationships, and like you say, your spirituality and your career path. It could be any type of what I call in all those 8 areas of wellness, right? How does that expand and expound on you becoming the next person? So I can say I've made it to this point of the journey, and I know I've only put the pinky toe on the water, and my ancestors are like cheering, like girl, because we were trying to get you to give this path back then, but you ain't listen, right? And so all of us have to come into our own awakening. And that's why I like what you said with the God understanding, your God's understanding, because it has to be on you. My
Yes.
understanding of God at 37 may be totally different than someone else's understanding at 42 or 55,
Yes.
17 or 3.
Yes.
It's different. And so we have to give allowance for that and not want the microwave situation or confine people to a certain thing. And I think that's when we talk about like with our backgrounds with religion, that is one of the cons of it. I was confined to this way of thinking.
Yes.
I didn't understand it. And luckily I had someone who told me that I was like, even Jehovah's Witness got stuff right. Even this Islam, he was like, yeah, everybody has something right in that perspective if they base things off of love. It's the rules and regulations that confine people because you're telling them one verse. And he used to always say, hey, don't read that one verse, read the whole chapter because the verse is
That's
before
right.
after it. And you're
That's right.
condemning somebody off of a verse. A lot of these cliches and rhetorics that we say out of our mouth are not found to be in the Bible. The average person has never read the Bible from cover to cover, so they couldn't tell you that. They don't know or have done study to say this is a word you believe in. But
Like
when you say
like
stuff,
spare the rod, spoil the child. You
or
ever found that in there?
only what you do for the Lord will last.
Yeah, I ain't seen that either. No.
It ain't in there because that would be he would be the author of confusion. If you tell me as the wife or the woman that my first priority, my first ministry is the church. I mean, my church is my household, my husband, even above my children. So how can you tell me at the church that I should be here every day and I need to be on this usher, this deacon board, and this usher board, and I have to come and serve the food, and I have to come up and clean up, and I have to be on this call because y'all having a meeting about this. I have to come up in the car. If you're telling me that, then and you're saying that's ministry, only what I do for God gonna last, that's a contradiction. And y'all say that God is not the author of confusion. So which one is it? I can't be everything here and here based off the word. So it's like when you think about that, not somebody gonna be listening to this and like, damn,
Yep.
not but because you heard it differently, right?
Yeah.
You have to be confined that my pastor said we supposed to be bop, bop, bop. And he's using to bop the Bible to say that.
Mhm.
I'm saying that you should be here because only what you do for the Lord will last. In what capacity? Because if my home fails as the woman, and my husband is not over my children, even over my children, if my husband is supposed to be the head, if I'm going by what they say is the head of the household, if I fail in doing those things, so people are saying, well, my marriage is messed up. My kids out here in the streets, but I'm in church every day.
Right. Right.
And they're not helping you with the kids running amok and out here in the streets and the daughter running away, the son out here all in the
No, they're talking about you is what they're doing.
red. So how can those things be equal? And then you say that only what I do for the Lord will last. Something is not right here. The role that you told me that I'm supposed to take on per the Bible, can't be a conflict because y'all say he's not author of confusion. So which one is it? And see, when you think about it like that and you start going on that journey, you have to question everything. When I say everything, everything, because then you realize that that's kind of dumb that I believe that. Like, if I don't go to church on Sunday, if I go on vacation, I have to be back on Sunday to go to church. But even Jesus rested on the Sabbath. So you
Yes, he
tell me
did.
so I can't go out of town and miss church. And that's why pastors are struggling as well, because y'all tell them they have to come up every Sunday as well. And they're the only one that can preach it. They got to be the head and all that. I'm like, no, pastor, you need to be taking vacations too. Take care of your household and
That's
going to
why they're
vacation.
burning out and dying.
Correct. And their
They're
their
burning out and
suicide
dying.
their suicide rate is at an all-time high as well. And we
Of course.
wonder why, because we don't allow them, because we have been confined to a certain thing. And I think
Yeah.
when you go through and that's why I believe you see this whole spiritual journey like this. So now as much as you can talk about that part, you can definitely talk about, the church and stuff like that. As the spiritual side, with spiritual side got the people that's going to the left too, right? And taking things all
Yep.
out of proportion too.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, when you look at that, you're like, okay, now I see why a lot of people, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I believe in
Yep.
doing this, I believe in doing that. And it's a slippery slope if you are not careful. And that's why I like the concept, like you said, that I connected with my ancestors. I listen to my oracles and my gods that are leading guys. So it's not all about me, because you could get in that slippery slope of saying, hey, I need it to be about me. I want to know
Yeah.
everything, so I'm asking these cards and I want to tell me everything. So you just keep going down to the slopes, keep going down. Instead of saying, hey, you still gotta have some mystery or aura about yourself. Like,
Yep.
let life happen too. And you could get some insights to make sure you're kind of affirming and confirming yourself, but you don't have to go out here and know everything. And if you keep those, if you listen to those guys, if you listen to those ancestors, if you listen to the higher powers, it still keeps you alive with that. It's like, hey, you like what you say you're going to say? um, just keep on living a little bit
Yep.
longer.
Just
Some of
just
that,
live a little longer.
some things that we need to know only can come by us living a little bit longer. It
Yep.
doesn't matter if I come to you for a reading, you tell me everything about my life. I still have to go through the living a little bit longer to understand it.
That's exactly right.
So it's like,
So let's talk about the ancestors. Share a little bit about how you connected with your ancestors, because I know a lot of people are interested in that now, because people are really starting to awaken and dive deep into those things and realizing that that's an important part of our spiritual journey. It really is. And a lot of it has been shut down because of a lot of the churches, and the religious aspects of it. And I think it's super important to know how, to connect. So share a little bit about that, because I know people want to know.
I think the funny part is that you usually don't connect with them; they connect with you. They're usually there around doing that type of stuff and pulling and tugging before you actually get the wherewithal to say, "Oh, maybe it's that right." And so for me, it definitely was me doing. I realized it more so when I got on this journey of saying, "Hey, I want to for practice on the science side for functional medicine. Oh, I could do these labs and I could do genetic tests, and they could tell me I could run labs and say, "Hey, do you have a gut bug?" or "Hey, how's your cortisol?" I could do the regular labs just like doctors, but my baseline was always in genetics because I've always had an interest in that. I've always been a history buff as well, right? I could have like they was like, "What would you do?" I'm like,
I
"Genetics."
love history. Me
Right.
too.
And then kids, when I was a kid, people used to have like posters of bell bands. I had like posters of like Black history. So I had like a African history, like with Shaka Zulu and Nefertiti, all them on one. I had one was like Martin Luther King on one, and the Women of the Silver. So I had history posters where everybody else had the boy bands and all that kind of stuff. I was,
Yeah, I
I
must
didn't,
admit, I had Prince on the wall. I'm just, I
I
had
was, yeah,
Prince,
I was Backstreet Boys,
Michael Jackson.
yeah, but I was
I
like
did
Backstreet
have Martin Luther King. A few of them, but
it
uh,
was it was
yeah,
crazy. And so my mom used to always joke about that. And then it was very much so I think for me, like connecting with them, I've always been in a way. I've always had that connection. I just like you said, between the religion and just moving fast and living life, not stopping and being present right now is what
yes,
comes from. Like so if you say, well, what do I need to do? It's like stop. Stop chasing. I always said stop chasing the future, stop running from the past and be in the present. That's where a lot of this understanding comes from because if you do that, then you're able to hear. They've been talking to you like that's why I said they connect with you way sooner than you connect with them. And for me, it was definitely when I started the genetics. I was like, okay, well, how I'm gonna niche down from even what I do in functional medicine. Functional medicine, we know that we get down to the root cause of stuff. So I'm like, how can I niche down even in that? When I started doing DNA, I learned about DNA activation, and then I like succession. I'm like, I just need to just deal like my niche is genetics, DNA. I'm using that whole thing, the science, spiritual, and
So did
succession.
you go to school for that?
Yes, I went to school for to be a functional medicine practitioner. So
Nice.
definitely did that. So those things are more like the science things. It's more like, hey, I need to get my lab work done, or I've been dealing with this chronic thing for so long. How can I get to the root cause of it? And so for me, the root cause was a picture of that puzzle. Like when we're putting the puzzle pieces together, a puzzle that was piece that was missing is a lot of people don't know when you go to the doctor and they say, hey, your family history. They always ask you that. And you don't pay attention. Why are you like, why are they always asking me that? That is important. It's a great predictor. And I saw this post that said, but within the last 400 years, if you go back 12 generations, you have 4,096 ancestors. 4,000. So four. I think it go back 2 and 4 and 6 and 12 and 2, and they keep doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling. So 12 generations back, I believe it's 4,096. And so think about all the stress, the trauma, the wins, the losses, the misactions, the divine timings that had to come into place, the struggle, the success, all that has been transferred down to you as the person. And so they've always been connected with us. We are the ones who don't sit still in the present and do that. So when I started learning about that as far as the genealogy of things, how does that stuff happen? And the succession part is like the legacy genealogy part of our business that says, what did you get from these people, right? And then we test your genetics for health and wellness. And then, of course, the spiritual side is like your DNA activation, your gene keys, things of that nature. And so when we include those things, you have to include them. And so for me, it was definitely that. And I had an ancestral tug because when I was younger, it was prophesied on me that I was supposed to be a healer and educator of nations. So I've always had that in the back of my head. And I believe that because I don't do the whole part. I'm like, I have to be affirmed and confirmed. You have to tell me something I'm already supposed to know. But I knew that because when I was 10, my grandmother died. And the only two things that I took from her was this chest that she had and this book about natural healing. I remember the very first time I did something to heal myself naturally. I got bit by an ant, and I went and looked at the recipe that said that you have to do salt and do this kind of paste and then draw the venom up. I remember the very first time at 10 years, like 10 or 11 years old, that I did something natural to heal myself. I knew that was in my DNA. I just didn't know how my love of history, how my love of science, how my love of healing would collide to make this person that I am. They've been
Mm.
tugging at me and said, hey, go down this path, go down this way. And I'm like, oh no, but I could do it this way and go like the nursing school. They're like, no, you go and you're not even going to test. So people thought it was crazy and weird, but they attempt to help us all the time, and they connect with us all the time. So it definitely was me, that grandmother. And I when I learned and picked and said I was going to do genetics, my ancestors were like on fire. Every reading I would do, every I would go to sleep and then something was like, go deeper than that. I kept getting everything I would look up about genetics. They're like, okay, you playing with that? Go deeper than that. Go deeper than that. It has to be. It was the whole. It has to be something more than this. And then I thought it was my life because I'm like, get a divorce, like move the kids, do this right. And so it's like I'm thinking this life stuff, and they're like, yeah, you got to clear out that, but go deeper than that. It's something more than that. And so they attempt to lead and guide us because guess what? They attempt, and it's so important. I think the reason why a lot of people are connected with it is because they have something riding on it too. Like how many people did I just say that it took to get you to this point? All the stuff that they wanted and wanted and wanted and wanted and wanted, the wishes that was for them, their generational things that they wanted, whether it's good or bad, they got a stake in the game too. They have a stake in the game to see you succeed. They have a stake in the game to hope you don't fulfill and repeat what they did. So they are all the time connecting and talking to us. It's us who doesn't sit down and say, or like you said, because of religious reasons, we're like, oh, you should. And I'm like, why not? They're the one with the more stake in the game. You're riding on their shoulders. If you like, my grandmother tell me quick, like, no, ma'am. And I have a great great grandmother that was the healer, was the woman who has been coming forth very loud. That was like, no, 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 I need you to get in the lab. Go do this. Write this down. Get this out. It is because she's very much in tune that if she had to make sacrifices and do stuff that she didn't want to do to protect
Yes.
them, I have
Mm-hmm.
to do it better to help to reverse those type of things. And so when you pay attention and you go on a journey, they have a lot of stake in the game too. So why not? Why not connect with them? Why not allow them to come forth in the way that they need to? Because most of the time it's not ill will. You come from them, and there's your win is their win. If you live a better life than they did, it's a win for them too.
That's powerful. Yeah, we have so much in common. That is so powerful because I believe that too. And I know, some of my ancestors and some of my DNA and all this kind of stuff. Like I know, some of the people that, the lines that I come from, you know what I mean? Some of the native lines, some of the African lines, some of the what's the other one? Irish lines, some of the Spanish lines, all these people that are us, that we have come from. It's like I always had a desire to study and see, what these people are about. And so,
Gotcha.
like, one of the things in our family, like on my mom's side, is they drink a lot. And so that was one of the things that I just was like, I'm not going out like that.
But the key part of that is that we don't know. So like if you want to do more to study and research with that, like stay tuned, we're definitely doing it. So like even with we do the science piece so that you know like health and wellness wise, is what you got from genetic wise. And then when we do the spiritual part, it's like, hey, when I was born at this part of this time, like what things were DNA activation. Plus when I was born at this date, place and time, what does that mean a lot for me? So it combines those things on the science side. And then the succession is who are those people? Like I have an Irish on my. They were like, "Why you celebrate St. Patrick's Day?" I was like 3 generations back, my great grandfather was Irish, and him and my yeah. And so for me, I learned, and I'm learning more and more about that he helped join out with this type of stuff, and I'm like, whoa, wait, like when they say this our land, like yeah, for real, like it's mine for real, and
Right.
also learn about like when you're connecting with them. That those things, it wasn't necessarily something that he wanted to do. And so my great grandmother, the one who's come aloud, was doing stuff that they call root work or black magic because she was doing it for protection. My lines and my lineage on my mother's side, we didn't move around a lot. There's not my direct lineage to say, well, we come from is Nigeria is very direct. We don't have like in my variations for health and wellness. I don't have a lot of variations. A lot of people they stuff light up like a Christmas tree. You're like, oh, well, This come from Irish people, and this come from Asian people, and this come from this, because you got all this mixation. We don't even have a lot of that. And it's because our ancestors did stuff to make sure that we were kind of together. So a lot of selling off and splitting up. Fortunately for me, on that side of my family, it wasn't a lot of that because my ancestors did this type of work. So they didn't want to necessarily do it in that way, but for protection and for those type of things, it's like, if I got to sleep with him and have these kids, you don't have to sell my kids off. I know what to do to not do that. And so we don't understand the legacy that even from that, like you said, drinking is something like, okay, well, is that in your genes? That's why I asked about your family history. So we look at those words like cancer. When we're doing your genetic profile, they're like, is it possible I could do cancer? I'm like, that's genetics. How you've been living your life since then helps or hurts your genes. So we have to get into all of that. But there are certain things that like people don't think about that you just said. Drinking. Like I have people all the time that like rape is an incestual thing that keep going. They keep going down the line. Like having rape or having children out of wedlock.
Or incest.
Incest, right? You know, like those, when you start talking about having self-worth, depression, those type of things, you're like, okay, they're never getting diagnosed with depression, but this person always is somebody every generation that stay locked up in the room doing something.
Well, you know, it's the same thing really, and we were just having a discussion about this, the same thing really about autism. Yeah. Now you see everything is autistic, this type of autism, that, and all that stuff. Well, we always had those kids. Those kids were always with us. There just wasn't a name for it at the time. You know, you did what you had to do to take care of them and make sure that they were safe and all that kind of stuff. But you knew, Aunt Sally was special. You know, that's what we used to say.
Right.
So and so was special.
And very true. You always had that aunt or uncle that was always slow.
Somebody. Right? There was lots of them. But the thing is they dealt with it, and then they said, okay, well, this is what we need to do for Johnny. But Johnny needs to go over here, and we're gonna let Johnny work over here, and in the factory or whatever, so that because it's something he could do repetitively or whatever. So Johnny can do this, and this is what we're gonna do. But Johnny gonna be productive in society,
And they didn't play about all that, but also think about these people who we put these labels on, and this from a spiritual standpoint in the different dimensions. Who's to say there's something really wrong with them? They may not just be in our 3D realm. It's just most of the time, these kids, my nephew promised them, and most of these kids who they say are special needs will blow you under the table a lot of stuff. Exactly. Have a conversation with them on paper based off a number. They may have special needs.
Exactly.
Talk to them about stuff. Talk to them about stuff on another dimension outside of this realm. Talk like and it changed my whole perspective, because I was like, oh, the guy that be on the street corner, he be dancing. They try to say he have schizophrenia. I'm like, maybe he ain't in our dimension. He ain't focused on us. That's why I look weird to us, right?
Exactly.
And when you start thinking about those different things, you call people bipolar. People talk about people like Kanye West. I'm like, that man said he a billionaire, but y'all call him bipolar. And why he keeps saying he don't want to get that medication?
So everybody is bipolar because we're not always all the same. I mean, are you happy every fucking day? No. You know what I mean? I'm not.
And you have people like Einstein. What do you call that?
Genius.
But by today's society, he would have probably been borderline schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm. And
so
that's okay.
We look at those things as because of labels, and what people, again, it's all about this mutation of putting somebody in a box. It's all about how can we confine this, because if we can control it and define it, then we can make money off of it. We can put these people in a place, and we don't understand, like you said, from the things that we're coming from, what that does for you. That's why when we say that, so you can be healthy, happy, and gain harmony, is that you need to discover and decode your DNA first, so that you can be showing yourself, and then you can make the decision about stuff. 99% of people don't know about themselves, and I'm not talking about, what kind of ice cream do I like? Do I like pizza?
No, you're talking about who am I? That question.
Period.
Who am I?
Outside of being a mom, outside of being a wife, when you came into this world, when you were in your mother's womb and was inside of, especially women don't think about that while I was in my mother's womb, I also was in my grandmother's womb. My grandma, you're born with all the eggs you won't ever have. So if I'm a female, I had eggs, and my mom was pregnant with me, and she would when she go back, this trauma, the experiences, the worry, the strife, the happiness, all those things that are passed to us emotionally and energetically, that shows up in our lives throughout the time. And you don't know where that comes from, because you don't even have a clue.
Exactly.
And so it's like, why focus on a lot of that other stuff when we can get down to that and it take you a century to get it done?
You're right about that, because that other stuff is easier, All right, so we're going to close out because we've been on here a long time. So, Miss Sequoyah, I have one more question for you. If you were to encounter your person, your client, the person that needs your help, what is the one thing that you would say to them?
Go on a journey to discover and decode your genetics. Um, you, to my ideal client, has already been telling you, you've been having a pull, you've been having a, there has to be something more than this. I don't know what is really going on. You're just going in the mundane and routine and regular mode of life, and your wellness is being affected. So you're like, oh, what should I eat? How should I exercise? How should I? All those questions happen, right? And there are baselines to follow and to find out about yourself in your genetics. And so I would say definitely go on that journey. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to say that you are worthy enough to do it, because you are. And it's beneficial on so many different levels, as we've said here, about finding out about your genealogy, finding out, your genetics. It's on the spiritual side and the science side. It's so much, there's so many benefits to learning and discovering who you are, so that then you can go and impact the world in the way that you need to be, right? And so my ideal clients, that's what they come there like, God, it has to be something more than this, is mainly what um, they're feeling. They feel this tug to go deeper and to discover and to find out stuff. So if that's you, then definitely get in contact with us so that we can go on this journey and take it together.
All right, and tell the people how to get in contact with you.
So you could go to our website to get on our subscription list, because we say this up all the time. You can go to bit.ly/Ashe, that's ASE, the word wellness, subscribe. So bit.ly/ASE wellness, subscribe. You also can go and make an appointment with us at doing the same thing, bit.ly Ashe Wellness appointment. So that's bit.ly/ASE Wellness appointment. And there you can schedule your chat. You can see our services that we offer and go from there.
And on social media, how can they connect?
On social media, if you just search for it, it is Ashe Wellness. But if you do like facebook.com/wellness Ashe. So wellness is first and then ASE.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So I know that you have enjoyed this conversation, because I have. It has been amazing. Sequoyah is so gifted and such an amazing healer. I have not experienced her service, but I'm experiencing her. So if she is who you are looking for, because I know that because you're watching this show, you are looking for her. So she has her details. I'll have the details as well in the description of the video or the audio that you're listening to, so that you can connect with her, because you need to, because she is powerful in that area. She's going to help you to transcend all that trauma and all that negativity, and help you to create a positive frame for your life. So again, thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah, talking with Tammi. My computer is wanting to act up. But thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah, talking with Tammi, with my guest Sequoyah Taylor Ase. Bye now.
I know you've been blown away with the amazing value here today. Now go out and inspire the planet. And be sure to send us a message when you're ready to come talk about it on Straight Out of Savannah, talking with Tammi.